Hello and welcome to Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on MegaPixx Media. Joining me today is Michael Kerr, who is the author of the book called The Jerk-Free Workplace. There it is, right there. Michael describes himself on his website as the Workplace Energizer. He's an author and a humorist. Thanks for joining us today, Mike.
Oh, thank you, Mario, for having me. It's awesome to be here.
Okay, so the subtitle of the book is How You Can Take the Lead to Create a Happier, More Inspiring Workplace. You know what? For me, it's simple. I am my workplace at home, so I'm happy and I'm inspired. But for the other people out there who may not be, tell me about the book and what it's about.
Yeah, the book is about creating, as the subtitle alludes to, a happier, more inspiring, more fun workplace. Everything I talk about and write about is about workplace culture and how culture really is the number one driver of business success in any organization. It is your number one competitive advantage, and it's the number one impact on employees' happiness and just well-being. And so I remind people in the book that work has a huge impact on our life that goes way beyond a paycheck, right? It affects our mental and physical health. It affects our marriages, our kids' lives, who we socialize with, our sense of purpose, our development. It affects where we live sometimes. It's a wee bit of a time sucker. So this thing called work has a huge impact on our lives. And if we are going to create a rocking, great, more inspiring, happier, fun, successful workplace, it really does take an intentional effort on everybody's part, not just the senior leaders. And that's very much the focus of the book, is the idea that everyone at every level in an organization has to step up as a leader on their team, in their workplace, as a frontline employee, and think about how they're contributing to their team environment, to their workplace culture, how they play a role in contributing to a rocking great workplace, because you can't do it alone. You've got to get as many leaders as possible in your workplace to create an awesome place to work.
So tell me the title, Jerk-Free. Is that the key to have a happy and a healthy workplace, is having no jerks around?
Well, I think it definitely helps to have no jerks around. It's funny, I was on a call earlier today and people were sharing memories of their most memorable, infamous jerk that they had to put up with, but talking about how much stress and pain that cost them, how they would lose sleep because of a jerk, and how it affected the team performance, how it affected sometimes customer service. In fact, I just referenced a study a week ago in an article I was writing about how just one jerk on a team can cause a team to underperform compared to other teams by 30 to 40%. So I think aiming for a workplace, and some people say it's not really possible, I think it is possible. Aiming for a workplace that is jerk-free, I think is a pretty good goal, a pretty good benchmark, and something to aim for if you want to create a better work environment.
So let me just ask you. I know you have in your book you have a number of highlights and ways of going about it, etc. What are maybe some of the key things that you want to highlight that to create this environment?
Yeah, well, one of the things, I don't necessarily touch on this a lot in this book, I do in some of my other books, but from an organizational cultural perspective is, hey, let's make sure we're not hiring any jerks to begin with. Like, that's a pretty good starting point. And in fact, a lot of companies, you might have heard this phrase, we do not tolerate brilliant jerks. So we don't care how smart you are, how many degrees you have. If you're a jerk, we don't want you working in our workplace. And I think that has to be a starting point. But the book really emphasizes how everyone has to start with themselves and take an individual responsibility. So in fact, that's my starting point in the book, is to ask the tough question, what if you're the jerk? and taking a hard look at your own behaviors. And sometimes they're unintentional, right? Sometimes we don't know we're being the jerk on our team until somebody kind of points it out. But yeah, some of those attitudes you bring to the meetings or those behaviors are kind of jerky. In fact, I do this very simple exercise in my workshops, Mario, where I sometimes ask people to rate their own performance at work on a scale of 1 to 10. You know, how's their attitude? How positive are they? Rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. So they do that. And then I say, okay, now I want you to use that same scale, but I want you to rate the rest of your teammates. And almost invariably, 8 or 9 out of every 10 people
Yeah.
rates themselves higher than the rest of their teammates. In other words, everyone's going, well, you know, it's not me, it's them. And they're the trouble. If I didn't have to work with these jerks, I could really get some stuff done. So we do have to start with ourselves. And also just from that aspect of realizing that you have a lot more control than you might appreciate. You have a lot more influence than you might appreciate. And the book is very much about that as well, about how you have far more power than you probably realize, no matter what job you are in, to influence your boss, even to influence your teammates towards creating a more positive workplace, but also taking responsibility for your reactions and responses to your work environment.
Yeah.
So maybe you're dealing with a jerk. Well, you've also got to step up as a leader and assume responsibility for how you react to the jerks in your workplace. So that's certainly a big part of it.
So I would imagine that, obviously, the book is geared to the workplace, but I would imagine that the lessons learned from the book can be taken outside of the workplace, right? So whether it's in your family environment, whether it's your social gatherings with friends, or your church, or whatever, your community club, all those lessons can translate to other settings, right, where you're in a relationship with people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. It applies throughout your life because a lot of it is just about being more aware of your attitude, of how you're communicating, and being more thoughtful with how you communicate, with the words you choose, being a better listener, putting yourself in other people's shoes, whether that's your spouse or your children, or as you say, your buddies at the bar, even, just being a little more aware and sensitive, and being aware of some of those behaviors that might be perceived as being a little jerkish. So I
Yeah.
think, everything applies to every aspect of our lives.
Okay, super. One last thing for you, Mike. I'm just curious. We're living in obviously very troubled times with COVID and the economy, et cetera. A lot of people out there, although moods, I know here in Calgary, seem to have picked up a little bit here lately, and maybe it's the 15-degree weather and the sun that helps. But man, a lot of bad people in bad moods for months and months, right? What role does humor play in this? And can you talk a little bit about the importance of humor in times that are tough?
Yeah, you betcha. And yeah, you're absolutely right. We need to lighten up a little more. In fact, another one of my books is called The Humor Advantage, and I have a chapter in the Jerk-Free Workplace about the importance of bringing your sense of humor along for the ride. How humor is an incredibly powerful tool to help you communicate better, to help you connect with people, build bridges, build trust, build relationships. It's incredibly powerful to just boost your morale. And we have to recognize, I talk about this in the book too, some very cool studies that show how contagious our emotions are, our attitudes are. How I talk about in the book, how even they've shown studies how there's sort of secondhand stress you can pass along, or you can be two people removed, I think, and still be affected by somebody's emotions. So in other words, your boss's spouse, if they were in a bad mood, that might end up trickling down to you. So I think just bringing your sense of humor along for the ride, and I make it clear in the book that that's not about being the office joker or being a stand-up comedian or being funny even all the time. It's about doing things in a spirit of fun. It's about bringing a little levity and lightness to everything you do, not taking your customers lightly or your work lightly. It's about taking yourself less seriously in
Yeah.
order to take your work seriously. It's about laughing at the things you have no control over, which right now is quite a bit, and laughing at yourselves more. As I always say to people, and this is so important when it comes to a jerk-free workplace, have you noticed how the more seriously a person takes themselves, the less seriously we tend to take those people? Which is a little bit ironic, right? Because people take themselves seriously in the hopes that everyone is taking me seriously. But the reality becomes, we're not taking you seriously, bucko, because you're taking yourself so seriously. So it's about just laughing at ourselves more, being more human, more real, more genuine, and just appreciating the everyday humor that's around us, that's so easy to find and celebrate.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, super. That was great, Michael. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
You bet. Thank you so much.
Okay, that was Michael Kerr, who has one of the greatest job titles I could see out there on his website, the Workplace Energizer. He's an author and a humorist, and the author of the book that's just out, The Jerk-Free Workplace. There it is. And this has been Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on MegaPixx Media. Thanks for joining us today.